I have a story to tell you. And it's not a pretty story. It doesn't have a good ending. But it is a cautionary tale. Because not only did I get the virus, but also I was tripping balls. So grab a snack and some drinks because I'm Ray, and I'm about to tell you how I got way too goddamn high. Before we can get into the meat of my story, we really need to talk about my history with weed. You see, back in the day, I knew a lot of people who would partake in the drugs. But I was a good boy, so I never did that myself. But one day, I ended up being very, very nauseous. I was in so much pain that I asked my parents for help, and my dad simply offered me his medical marijuana. I didn't know this at the time, but apparently weed kinda cures your nausea. Well, I don't know if you can consider it a cure per se, but it definitely helps you feel better. Now again, I was a good boy, I didn't do no drugs. However, the prospect of my nausea sort of chilling out and not being so bad anymore was pretty tempting, so eventually my parents convinced me. I took one big hit of that fat doinky sploinky, and of course I coughed my head off. Yeah, I didn't really know how much I was supposed to take, but one big hit seemed like it would do the job just fine. And with that, all I could do was wait. But it didn't even take that long. Soon enough, I was high as a kite, and I was feeling a lot better. The weed also made me really tired, so I ended up getting very good sleep that night. It was a positive experience. But maybe a little too positive. I didn't realize there were negative side effects to weed. I was ignorant, and that was my first mistake. Because I don't really do drugs, I don't really know shit about them. And this would come to bite me in the ass. Because one day, I was feeling incredibly full. I woke up feeling full, and I realized I didn't go to the bathroom yesterday. And this problem would only get worse. You see, I skipped breakfast, but my nausea was still there, so I tried eating a handful of nuts because I didn't just want to go the entire day without eating, but that ended up making my nausea worse, so I just stopped eating altogether. Eventually the sun went down, and I was getting desperate. The pain was becoming unbearable, and I just needed some sort of relief. So of course, I asked my mom, "Hey, do you got the stuff?" Okay, I didn't ask it like that, but she did give me my dad's medical marijuana, and I asked, "Hey, how many hits should I take?" And well, she simply replied with, "Oh, as many as you think you need." And I guess she just didn't realize how ignorant I was. But yeah, I didn't know that greening out was even a thing. I didn't know you could take too much weed. In my mind, I thought weed was the only drug that you couldn't overdose on. So I took 10 consecutive hits in a row. Yeah, 10 hits in a row. And then, to top it off, I took one big hit. And you know why I did it? I did it because I thought, hey, I can't overdose, and my nausea is really bad, so I just need even more weed than normal. 10 hits shouldn't be bad, right? What could possibly go wrong? And well, this, my friends, was the beginning of the end. So obviously, this is where things got very bad. And it was almost instant too, because soon as I finished taking that final big hit, I felt weird. I started to feel lighter. Like, I understand why they call it being high now, because I genuinely felt like I was gonna fucking fly off the floor. And because of that, I started touching the walls to make sure I was still in a physical space, because I didn't even feel real anymore. This already, from the get-go, was an awful trip. My mom, of course, was wondering if I was okay. I tried telling her that I was fine, but then I ended up over-explaining myself. My thoughts were very fast and very loud. It's like having ADHD, but cranked up to 11. It's like the Super Saiyan of ADHD. This shit is just built different. And yet, despite all that, I was incredibly self-aware. And because of that, I got pretty embarrassed as I continued to ramble on, not really saying anything that made sense. It only really made sense to my ultra-high brain, so I just kind of sound like a crazy person. Of course, I wanted to be alone because I felt so embarrassed, so I went to my room. But before I went, my mom said that I should eat some food now that I'm not nauseous because I haven't eaten all day. I agreed. She said she would make me a sandwich, but I have to eat it very, very slowly so my nausea doesn't come back. I was like, yeah, of course, I'll eat it slowly, no problem. I went to my room and started to panic more internally. Being alone with my thoughts turned out to be worse than just talking to someone. Because yeah, I was embarrassed, okay? But I didn't want to be alone either. Being alone just made me feel even more disconnected from reality. So naturally, I sat in bed and began to contact some friends on Discord. They did not help. So of course, as soon as they learn I'm high, the first thing they start doing is making jokes. They compared me to Brian Griffin in that one episode of Family Guy where he was tripping balls the entire time. And even after they realized just how high I was, they still continued making jokes. But you know, I expect nothing less of my friends. In fact, it was really funny and very comforting. However, of course, there is a problem. You see, my mom delivered me the sandwich. So while I was talking on Discord, I was trying to slowly eat the sandwich. Unfortunately, when you're as high as I was, time doesn't feel real. 5 minutes felt more like 10 minutes. 10 minutes felt more like 20, or sometimes 30. So of course, while I was talking, I lost track of time completely. And within just 3 minutes, that entire sandwich was eaten. I looked down at my plate and my heart sank as I realized I just finished the last bite. Not even 10 seconds later, I started to feel incredibly nauseous. And just when you thought things couldn't get worse, this is where things get worse. I thought the pain was bad before, but now it was even worse. I ended up being in the bathroom for a long time. I was still constipated and of course now very nauseous. And there was nothing I could really do. I just had to suffer the pain. Nothing else could get rid of my nausea, and nothing was gonna stop me from just being high. There's no cure to weed. I was greening out. The only thing that made me feel even remotely better was taking a bath. I sat in that bath for 3 hours because it was the least painful I felt. I'm not sure why taking a bath made me feel slightly less nauseated and slightly calmer, but it did. And I didn't even attempt to contact my friends again for a while because I just had no energy, no stamina, nothing left. Talking to people wasn't gonna help anymore at this point. It was just torture. So I was all alone. Eventually I did get out of the bath because I thought, well, I feel a little bit better, so maybe I can try and get some sleep because it's really late. I got out of the bath, laid down, and all the pain came back in full force. I tried sleeping, but I couldn't. I tried barfing, but I couldn't. I just laid in bed, propped up by pillows, and I had a bucket right there in case I needed to puke. Keep in mind, this went on for many hours, and time was slow, so it actually felt much longer. This lasted like a whole 6-hour period, but it felt like 12. But there is a little bit of a resolution here. You see, while I was in pain, alone, laying there with nothing but my thoughts, I realized something. I need something that makes me feel normal. Something that brings me back to reality. Something that I enjoyed from my childhood. Something from my roots. So I had to dig deep, but I finally found the answer. And the answer was fucking Family Guy. So you know what I did? I got on YouTube and I looked up Family Guy. That's right, I watched Family Guy on YouTube while I was laying there sick in bed, and it actually worked. I watched many episodes that night, and it was nice. I hadn't watched the show in so long. It was nostalgic, it was chill, it was funny, and it reminded me of a better time. A time when I wasn't fucking sick laying in bed in pain and high. When I was a kid watching Adult Swim late at night. And you know what? After watching so many episodes, I finally did it. I puked! I got all that gunk out of my stomach, and I felt so much better. Still nauseous, but it wasn't unbearable anymore. I was able to actually lay down a bit, and with that, I got 4 hours of sleep. Yeah, it was not a lot of sleep, but it was nice to get any sleep at all. So, you know what? I'll take it. Later that morning, I watched some Christmas movies with my mom because it was still winter and we felt like watching Christmas stuff. And I was so emotional and physically drained that as we watched our favorite Christmas movies, hers being Home Alone and mine's being Klaus, I actually teared up during both movies. I've never cried while watching Home Alone, and I've only shed a single manly tear while watching Klaus. So I was genuinely shocked, but it was clear I was emotionally vulnerable and incredibly drained after that horrible night. Although I was still nauseous. Not nearly as nauseous as before, it was actually bearable, but it was still there. And at this point, I finally stopped greening out, so my mom offered me some weed. I was horrified at the idea at first. I refused outright taking any more weed, but she eventually convinced me to just take a few small hits, take it slow, and I did. And it was actually nice. Apparently, if you don't smoke too much weed, then it's actually kind of a chill experience. Who knew? But after a couple days, I eventually learned that my sickness wasn't just any sickness. It was actually the virus. Yeah, the one from 2020. But eventually it passed and everything went back to normal. Now that may seem like a happy ending, but just a few weeks later, I got chickenpox. I never had chickenpox as a kid, but apparently it's much worse as an adult, and I can confirm it's much worse as an adult. That shit was genuinely worse than greening out while also having the virus. So yeah, kids, get your flu shots. Don't get chickenpox like me, because that shit is genuinely horrific. And that was the story. But there's many more where that came from. Did you know I may have possibly almost caused a car crash with a bouncy ball? Did you know that I chased a pack of wild coyotes as a child? I've got a lot of stories to tell, so I'm gonna keep making videos like this. I'm still gonna be making my goofy little animatics too every now and then, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, I hope you liked the video, and I hope you're ready to see more like this in the future. So yeah, subscribe if you're cool, and until next time, adios!